Hello, everyone, and welcome to our free webinar on how to hack your sales pipeline with generative AI. My name is Nick. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a training academy called Edifai. And we've been working with loads of different clients in really trying to understand how to harness the power of generative AI for many different tasks, understanding what can be automated, what can be augmented, and frankly, where AI really just doesn't do a good job. Today, of course, we're talking at the sales process. So I've got some very special guests with me. I'll introduce them in just a moment. But we had a little check-in Menti here, just on where you think generative AI is most going to disrupt the things that biz dev people or salespeople kind of do on a daily basis. And interesting here to see lead gen steaming ahead, followed by prospecting, nurturing, and meetings closing. So we're actually going to look at each of those stages of the sales funnel today and identify some really useful tools and some really useful techniques that you can put into action straight away. Before we start this webinar, I always just like to caveat with one really simple thing. There seems to be a lot of fear right now in a lot of industries and within a lot of functions and roles that AI is going to replace you. And I think if you're a seasoned salesperson, like the two people I've got joining me, you probably understand that actually AI is your super assistant when it comes to managing your sales pipeline a lot better. And frankly, the people who learn how to use AI are the ones that are more likely to take your role. So that's really what we're going to explore today. Some key things we're going to look at. We're going to look at the sales process. So we're going to look at each of those 4 stages of the funnel. So prospecting, lead generation, meeting management and closing, and of course, nurturing leads. And we'll identify some of the key tools that you can use in each of those stages. We're also going to share with you some really useful prompting frameworks that can be used for sales-related tasks and a whole suite of different tools that you can access. And we'll provide you with a list of those tools and the relevant links towards the end of the session. So without further ado, our very first special guest to introduce themselves today is actually our very own business development or sales manager here at Edifai. Louis, do you want to give a quick introduction to everyone who's here today?
Yeah, hi. Thanks everyone for coming along and joining us today. So yeah, I'm Louis. I work here at Edifai alongside Nick and Jeremiah. I'm a senior learning consultant here. So essentially what I do is I manage everything from our cold outreach through to ensuring that our program and workshop deliveries go smoothly. And that it matches essentially just what our clients are looking for. So a big part of my role involves advising companies who want to get started with AI but don't necessarily know how to get started with AI. I basically advise them on the best ways to do that in terms of our offerings. So I think it's probably important to mention that I myself am not an AI expert, but it's something that I've really come to lean on to help me out in our sales process. So yeah, that's what I'll be sharing with you today. So yeah, looking forward to sharing some tips and tricks.
Brilliant. And so we've got Louis, who's a very seasoned sales expert, if you will, but we're also joined by our very own AI expert, who's going to lead the session today. Jeremiah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremiah. I'll be leading the session today. Yeah, it's my privilege to do so. I've been in AI for about 2.5 years, so I consult for a few different companies. My background is in tech sales. And yeah, I saw AI booming and I thought, okay, this is definitely something that's only going to become more valuable. My background's in hospitality, where of course, client acquisition and customer experience are always important. So, I'm always mindful of how companies can use that whenever they're relating their own clients. I also specialize in productivity apps when it comes to the software engineering. And I just generally help businesses with all levels of business development and ways to streamline their processes, just so, yeah, they can reduce friction at every stage. Okay, so the big question we're all here for, right, is how is AI changing sales? So sales is, of course, the mother of all skill. Client acquisition is the mother of all skill, and all businesses will always be willing to pay a premium for anyone who can close regularly and consistently, because, of course, this is ultimately what ensures profit, right? So moving on from that, we can already see the big players in the spaces that are leading industries. So, for example, IBM Watson and the H&R Block, they've already found ways to actually figure out what kind of clients will need their services and when, so they can essentially meet them halfway before they even think to themselves, oh, okay, it's time to get in touch with a company that provides this service or that service. So Salesforce have an AI engine tool as well called Einstein, which is very valuable. It's basically a way to analyze an entire customer's experience, their data, and provide the company itself with information as to how best to approach, their potential clients and how best to go about closing. The key thing is to use AI to reduce all the little aspects of inefficiencies and all the things that may cause some friction during the sales process. And of course, Amazon e-commerce, predictive analysis is basically taking over the whole internet, and everyone's, cookies are being used so that we can be resold to and retargeted, right, via, a lot of AI marketing tools, shall we say. So it's definitely very widespread. And these are some of the tools that these giants in industries have already been using in order to stay ahead. So moving on from that, we can see there's a whole host of tools and platforms here. I know for a fact Louis will be providing links to all of these towards the end of the webinar. So we've got, of course, the flagship ChatGPT, recently just been trumped by Anthropic's Claude. So it's a very, very fierce AI race and battle at the moment. So ChatGPT is, of course, they were the initial trailblazers. Anthropic was created by someone who used to work for OpenAI, but decided to go and make a different sort of system that was focused more on safety. Perplexity is exceptional for research. Gemini is connected directly to Google, excuse me. So that's also very useful when it comes to research. Tactiq, useful for meetings and analyzing client sentiment. G is also very valuable in multiple aspects of the sales process. And Mailbutler can be useful when it comes to actually going back and forth on correspondences and knowing exactly how to minimize number of correspondences. GitMind, very useful for visualizing data. So yeah, it's going to be great to touch on these applications and tools today. Amazing stuff. So the first thing I always like to begin with is the importance of privacy. So AI essentially works on what it's been given, right? So the information it provides is largely based on what it's been given. And AI can often hallucinate, which is where it creates things that aren't actually real in the hopes of pleasing whoever's, excuse me, entered a prompt. So a hallucination is essentially when it's made up some stuff. You can think of AI as an intern that's really keen to please and always trying to do its best, but isn't necessarily going to do its best if it's not equipped with the right tools. And of course, there is the issue of data bias, because it can only give information based on what it's been trained on. So if that data is biased, let's say it leans towards more a Western mindset or an Eastern mindset, then of course that will be reflected in its outputs. And of course, there is the topic of intellectual property ownership, which is very important, especially when you are not looking to infringe on anyone's IP. Okay, so I'm going to pass it on to Louis, who's certainly very well versed in all these stages of the sales process.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jeremiah. So these are some of the areas that I use Gen AI for on a day-to-day basis in my work here at Edifai. I think there's really 4 main areas to look at this. So for prospecting, it's all about knowing where and how to find your ideal customer or client. AI can help you with that in terms of market research. That's something that we'll be going through in a moment's time. Jeremiah is going to do a bit of a demo on that, so you can have a good idea about the best tools to do that for. And also, as well as knowing the people to target as well in those companies. So for me, this includes finding relevant LinkedIn groups, as I know the people in those will share similar interests to what we're selling. For lead gen, I often use AI to help me write my sales copy. So that could be cold outreach or also to existing contacts, people that we've already met with, either in person or online as well. And I think we're kind of really at a stage now with AI where if this is not something that you're already doing, then you really should be. I mean, there's a skill and there's an art to know how to prompt the LLMs, because obviously you need to tell it exactly what you're selling and what your company's all about. But it's something which is just changing sales so much. And again, this is something which we're going to be covering quite extensively later on in the session. For closing, you can really use AI as your personal assistant, really, when it comes to sales, and closing is no different to that. It's a huge part of playing that. I like to think of it as a cheat code where that's concerned, because a lot of the times I can do meetings and then you can just go straight back through the transcripts. You can ask it so many things. And as I say, it's pretty much like your personal assistant at that stage. And it often reveals things that you may not have otherwise noticed. So if you're really specific with your questions, again, it will throw out things that you can then use in further meetings, not just with that customer, but for improvement moving on as well. So it's been a massive game changer for me where that's concerned. It just provides so much data and research. And then for nurturing, which I think is perhaps a tricky one for AI to be as influential as it can be in the other stages, because as we all know, like sales is massive when it comes to human touch. At the end of the day, it's all about people. People buy from people, they don't buy from machines. So it's never going to really completely replace that personal aspect. But with that said, I really think there's a lot of value in terms of where AI can help you set reminders for follow-ups and check-ins. And it also provides insights for what to include in those as well. So there's plenty of useful tools that you can do this through. And again, we'll go through that in a moment's time as well.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very much, Louis. So moving on to exactly how we can use AI in prospecting. The key thing to remember is really and truly, you want to be able to know exactly where you can find your customer, right? But in order to do that, you need to do some research on the customer. So it's really important to, understand what predictive analysis is. Humans are animals that have certain behavioral patterns, have certain behavioral patterns, and these habits often repeat, right? So if you can identify these repeating habits, then you can essentially meet them halfway and you can make the entire process a lot easier. So if I were to mention, the precise ways, of course, there is that predictive analysis. And the great thing is you can also use AI to generate posts. You can use it to generate images that will actually attract the sort of target audience you're looking for. And of course, you can make sure they're placed in the right spaces. Now, if I'm to go on to the best sort of tips or top tips about how to actually use AI, or when it comes to prospecting, or which tools to use, I would recommend one called Perplexity. And I'll be showing a demo very shortly. Now, Perplexity is great because it's really useful when it comes to researching. Right. So researching is, of course, the key thing, because then you'll be able to understand your customers' habits, as I've just mentioned. So I'm going to just take over the screen and give a very short demo. So yeah, I'll just run this again. So let's say, for example, you're a drinks company and you were looking for gaps in the market that you could potentially, fill, that aren't being currently filled by, the big giants. Here's a prompt I thought of earlier, which is, let's say you're going after some of Coca-Cola's share. Like, you could do some research. The prompt could be, compare Coca-Cola's recent financial performance and market share with its main competitors and highlight which companies excel or lags, right? And exactly where they excel or they lag. Okay, great. So great thing about Perplexity is it can give us sources, and it typically will if it's anything research-based. So I've got some sources from Statista. It's given us this useful graph here about the market cap of Coca-Cola, which we could potentially use to map other data on. So it tells us that, of course, Coca-Cola holds a dominant position. Tells us about revenue growth, profitability, areas of excellence, and where they can also improve. So health concerns. Okay, so with this information, right, I can immediately think to myself, okay, if I am, let's say, a health conscious beverage provider, I can immediately use that in my sort of marketing as a comparison to Coca-Cola and why this would be a better product. Also, with Perplexity, what you can also do is you can actually reverse engineer the process of trying to find a client, because of course, ideally clients are also looking for a particular business that has a particular service or product. So if I were to start a new thread, here's another prompt I thought of earlier. So if I were a business or customer looking for, let's say, an affordable CRM software, right, for startups, where's the first place I would look online? So this would be from the perspective of, let's say, a business owner who's providing an affordable CRM software specifically targeted at startups. So we'd run that and then see where we go. So we get some more references as well, right? And yeah, we can also use this information when we're actually building out user journeys, and when we're deciding where exactly we'll go in order to place potential top of funnels. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing there. And next, we can move on to lead generation. And I'll just let Louis share his experience when it comes to lead gen.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I think, again, there's kind of four main areas for this, really. So personalized outreach, which is kind of what I said at the start. Gen AI is so powerful when it comes to creating personalized, high converting lead gen sequences. I'm sure this is something that a lot of you are already aware of already, but again, like I said, the art is really in prompting the LLM, but the results that you can get from that within seconds as well is just unbelievable. Predictive analysis is another key area. So AI-based predictive models can identify your best fit leads, it can prioritize outreach for you, and essentially just guide your sales strategy for the best results. Content generation, so similar to personalized outreach for emails, but it can also be used to create custom content such as white papers, blogs, social media updates, but also for more like personal content for your leads, such as like webinar events or follow-ups as well. So there's really a couple of buckets for that when it comes to content generation. And then finally, automated research and analysis. AI is so powerful when it comes to analyzing market trends and competitor activities. It's one of the main things that I use it for in my day-to-day work. Yeah, it's just been a massive game changer for me, really. It just allows you to target your leads much more effectively and with confidence as well, because you can qualify them within minutes. So you can go into any call or write any email knowing that you've got the facts behind you, and it's just confidence is massive in sales, and to have that within like minutes or seconds is such a game changer, really.
Great stuff. So of course, when you're using these LLMs and these AI tools, as I mentioned before, they can only create an output that's based on the input you provide them. So one rule to always remember is your output will never and can never really be any more specific with regards to context than your input. So whenever, people accuse LLMs of having very generic information, it's because really usually the prompts that it's been trained on or the data it's been trained on is also equally as generic. So it's really important to understand that you have to be mindful in the prompting process. So we at Edifai, we have quite a few templates that we use. One of our most famous one is the create template, which stands for character, request, example, audience, type, and extras. So it's been noted that these LLMs, they sort of perform best when they take on the character of a role. So you have to think to yourself, who has the skills or the expertise that I need in order to acquire this information? So let's say you are doing something in sales, as I'm sure we all are. You can say, okay, I am a sales executive for a global conglomerate, right? So that's a great way to set the scene and to give the LLM a character, right? So, and then next you can go into the specific request. It's really important to be mindful of the context you're providing, because the context you provide is essentially the limit as to how specific the LLM can be in its output. So it's really important to be mindful to give it all the necessary context and try and leave out any things that aren't really that useful, because it may also process that when providing its information or output. If you can provide examples, that will always be very useful. And then it can use that when trying to figure out an output to provide you with something that would also be acceptable. It's always important to, tailor the output, the tone of voice of the output to a particular audience or target group. So you want to make sure that's very clear. When it comes to the type, of course, generative AI can create a lot of different kinds of media and text in different forms. So it can create images, ordered lists, unordered lists, tables. So it's really important to be specific with this. And when it comes to extras, you can, of course, add things like, let's say, call to actions. Say, for example, if we wanted to create a lead gen sequence, we could easily just make sure we add the call to action there in the extras and make sure it's all coherent. So I'm going to use this example now, and I'm going to get this into ChatGPT. So this example will be for a lead generation sequence, right, in order to funnel people into, quite appropriately, an AI Success Academy, right, which is essentially what we do here at Edifai. So it's important to actually know, okay, how would we go about a lead generation sequence if we were to do that? So I'm just about to share my screen in a minute. I'll just be pasting this in this form. So when you're actually copying and pasting the template, you don't have to put character request and all these sort of things. You can just separate it and segment it into paragraphs, because that's often a lot easier. And the LLM will still understand exactly what you mean. This is just really a framework for people, not necessarily for the LLM itself. It's more for people to understand how to speak to the LLM. So I've got this here. I'm going to begin sharing my screen. Here we go. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to read through this so you're all aware. So you are the sales manager of an AI education company, AI Success Academy. You're knowledgeable about AI and passionate about helping businesses. I won't go through it all, but you can see I've set the character quite clearly. And the request is create an email sequence designed to generate leads by providing valuable content that educates business professionals on the benefits of AI. Okay, and next I've gone into examples, so case studies of popular notable businesses, and then the target audience. And then, of course, the sequence will include a series of emails with bullet points. This is the type, right, the format. And then lastly, a call to action at the end, which would be the extra section. So I'm just going to run this prompt. And let's see what we get here. So as you can see, we've got it running away with some text. So email sequence for AI Success Academy. Okay, it's given us a subject line. Okay, it's told us where we can add a first name. Okay, why AI? Key bullet points, as we stated, case studies, using Amazon as a case study. Okay, great. This is, of course, an interesting option. So if you've got, let's say, an asset that you can use to actually inform people even more, that can easily be attached. Or you could also use perhaps a link to a LinkedIn post or a social media post that's done well. And a simple sign off. And then we've got 1, 2, 3. Let's see how many we get in this sequence. 4 and 5. Okay, great stuff. So what we can do as well, now we've got this in a text format, it's useful, but we can always make it more useful with regards to visualization. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to copy and paste this into a document, and then I'll move this into another AI tool. And what I'll do with that tool is I'm going to put it into an application, an online application called GitMind, which is essentially just going to help me visualize it a bit better. Right. So I'm just gonna save this. So you can literally just copy the output. You can save it as a Word document or as a PDF, which is what I'm doing now. So I'll save it as a PDF, AI sales example. Okay, and then I can go over to GitMind. I can create a mind map using AI, right? And then I can click File to Mind Map. And then I can choose the file. So if I go AI for sales example, right? And I click Generate. you'll see this will just do its thing. And this isn't necessarily going to give us anything that's new. It's just going to visualize the data in a way that's much easier to follow. So this was the first one I did. That was an example. Now it's giving us the second one. And as you can see, this will be generating away in the background. Sometimes it gives this box here marked down, but we don't need that. So I'll just delete that. And then it gives us a good, I can just zoom in and out. It gives us a good diagram essentially of how we can structure this. So if we look at the first email, I'm just going to wait for this to finish. Yeah, so if we look at the first email, okay, it's got the subject there, greeting, introduction, welcome to your first step to transform your business with artificial intelligence, exactly what it is. And this can just make it a lot easier to really understand the whole sequence from a bird's eye point of view. And yeah, this can be very useful, especially if this is a task that needs to be delegated. Okay, great stuff. So next, we can go into closing. I'll let Louis take it from here as to his experiences.
Yeah, great stuff. So I think, as I said at the start, this is something that I really see AI as being like a personal assistant when it comes to closing. And then there's really kind of like 4 or 5 areas that I think are most useful where that's concerned. Negotiation support. So AI can provide real-time suggestions based on previous interactions with people. So this is predominantly through meeting transcripts and notes. And there's some really good tools out there that you can do that with. One of them is called Tactiq, and we'll be taking you through that in a moment. In my opinion, it's probably one of the best out there. It's one that I use whenever I have a meeting. And it's just been such a game changer for us. Do analytics, so something that you might not have previously considered too much before where AI is concerned. But it can be really useful when analyzing historical deal data. So that can provide you some like the best strategies to close, using data before, what were the best ways that we got the deals over the line before, and then just putting that into action again. I definitely think that's one of AI's most overlooked uses when it comes to sales, but definitely want to look into, if you think it would help you. Follow-up automation. So I kind of said before about how AI can do this sort of thing for you. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but essentially it gives you the ability to provide timely and personal follow-ups to ensure that no hot lead goes cold at a critical time in the sales process. And then personalized documents and contracts. So again, similar to content creation, which I said before, AI can quickly and professionally draft up proposals, quotes, and contracts. But it's very important to mention, though, that to Jeremiah's point at the start about sensitive data, obviously it's always good to check with like your legal team first if you're in like a big team or a big company. But if you're a smaller company, then this can be something that can really save you quite a lot of time. It's quite admin-y. And if it's something that you want to continually use, then you always have a template after that as well. So again, which is something which I know that we use here quite a lot. And then customer relationship management. So I kind of said there about, if you're a smaller team, but if you're a bigger team that have like a CRM that you use, AI can be very handy when it comes to updating the CRM with the latest updates in negotiations and notes on each contact and deal. So I think overall it's just about saving time, and especially at this critical stage of the sales process when you're trying to get these deals over the line. I think these 5 tips, can make such a big difference.
Amazing stuff. So things that can be done before the meeting, of course, we've got Calendly. I'm sure most people will be familiar with. Microsoft also have their own system, Microsoft Bookings, which can essentially aggregate everyone's calendars and provide easy sort of solution to scheduling. So there doesn't need to be so many, back and forth with regards to correspondences, because oftentimes that's part of it, isn't it? Like someone will send an email saying, can you do this date? The other person may respond the day after, and then, with an opposing date, because they can't do that. And that, of course, takes time. And yeah, AI is, of course, here to make us all efficient. So also when it comes to agenda preparation, Notion AI and ClickUp, they're very useful tools. They can make sure that no one ends up in a meeting that they don't necessarily need to be in. So, making sure human resources are being used efficiently, and also it can just make sure that we actually stick to the agenda of the meeting, because oftentimes it can be easy to get sidetracked if there isn't a clear-cut agenda. Now, during the meeting, AI can be very useful. Otter and Microsoft Teams have built-in AIs that can actually analyze an entire transcript and then represent, or as I often like to say, represent information to the person doing the sales call and provide them with some useful insights that they can use when it comes to closing. And of course, when it comes to facilitation, Zoom's AI Companion and Cisco's WebEx Assistant, those are very useful tools when it actually comes to extracting some more key insights and ways to actually proceed from there. Now, after the meeting, I talked about Salesforce's tool Einstein earlier, and of course HubSpot. This can be a great way to essentially get the information from the meeting and put it into a CRM to basically describe to, let's say, other people on the team how hot or cold a lead is after each particular meeting. And when it comes to task management, Asana and Trello also have built-in AI functions that actually allow tasks to be delegated very clearly based off topics that were discussed in meetings as well. So I'm just going to showcase as well Tactiq in action. So Louis and I had bear in mind this was a test meeting, but it's still quite useful to show you exactly what can be done with this technology and how time can be saved. So the really important thing to understand is that AI can't do exactly what a human being can do. It can just do about 70 to 80% of it, but it can do it about 10,000 times faster. And with that extra time, we're now capable of thinking more laterally and thinking of ways to actually develop a business. Okay, so I'm going to begin sharing my screen. There we go. So as you can see, the text transcription is mostly accurate. I would say it's about 80 to 90% accurate. And it just, it basically transcribes everything that's said in the meeting. And then it gives us this very convenient box at the top here, right? So let's say I wanted to get some key insights from the meeting. This is a prompt I thought of earlier. Now, this is from my point of view, but of course, these are tools and these are questions that Louis could ask. In this meeting, I was asking Louis how things were going at Edifai. So let's say Louis wanted to know, based on the transcript, what approach or angle seemed to resonate most positively with, let's put my name here, with Jeremiah, right? You can send this as a request, and then we can receive a response, and we can use this and lean on this particular aspect, especially when it comes to closing. Okay, I'm just going to just try that again. Whoops. Okay, great. So that's doing its thing. So based on the transcript, the approach or angle that seemed to resonate most positively with Jeremiah was to focus on teamwork, collaboration, and building roadmaps. Okay, that's quite useful. So Jeremiah expressed interest in working together as a team, sharing examples and experiences, and creating a curriculum that aligns with the company's values and goals. This emphasis on collaboration and aligning AI education with overall company objectives seemed to resonate well with Jeremiah. So that's very valuable information. So next follow-up meeting that I have with Louis, he can lean on that aspect and emphasize it a bit more, and that can be exactly what's required to move the needle and push a client just over the line for a closed sale. So Tactiq is a very, very useful tool. I've also got these one-click prompts, generate a detailed summary in just one click. So this is a tab that opens as soon as the meeting ends. Now, Tactiq can be used directly with Google Meet or Zoom as well. Now it's building the summary. Okay, so it gives us, catch up and updates, client feedback. We received positive feedback from the client who purchased their workshops. That's great to know. Workshop facilitation. Okay, great. So that can be very useful. Generate action items. So these action items can be very useful for Louis, and it could also even be used for the client. So if, let's say, there's a potential, let's say your company is being sold to and you're on the other side of the sales process, you could even use this to generate action items or detailed summaries of the meetings that you were in. Okay, cool. And with that, we can move on. I'll give Louis some time to share his experience when it comes to the nurturing aspect of sales.
Yes, I think, as I said at the start, it's one of the areas that AI perhaps doesn't have quite as much influence as the other areas, but there are still areas that it can add value. And one of them is automated follow-ups. That's probably the most effective role that AI can play in the nurturing process. So just making sure that your leads are just staying like warm and they don't forget about you, or you indeed don't forget about them as well. So there's a lot of AI powered tools out there that automatically schedule meetings, send reminders, and handle follow-ups for you. So it's all about just keeping you organized and streamline your processes really. And it can also provide recommendations into the best times to reach back out to your contacts. And again, that's based on historical deal data. So I think that's something that's really quite useful actually, and something that I've used quite a bit in my work. Content creation again. So similar to some of the other stages, Gen AI has a lot of power to create feedback and referral forms and polls. So again, it's just all about saving time really. And as we know, that time it's such a virtue in sales. So again, if it's like a smaller team that you have, then and it's more admin work on your side, then this is something that can really clear up your schedule for the rest of the week. And then analyzing behavior. So it can provide insights and reports into lead behavior and engagement, such as email open and click rates. And obviously, this is nothing new when it comes to sales tools. There's plenty of other platforms and tools that already do that without the use of AI. But I think really where AI adds value into this is the report generation side of it. So not only does it show you kind of numerically what the open and click rates are, it kind of uses data not just in the present, but also from previous deals before. Yeah, so it gives you a really good idea of how to progress with that as well.
Amazing stuff. So when it comes to using AI in the nurturing process, there are quite a few ways one can go about it. So personalization is, of course, always key. There's dynamic yield and Adobe Target, which is great at creating bulk sort of blast emails, but using dynamic fields so that the emails can be tailored to actually have people's, let's say, first names or last names or their specific businesses. So that's a great way to essentially solve the problem of saving time when it comes to correspondences, but also making sure correspondences are personalized. When it comes to customer segmentation, HubSpot and Marketo, really useful because, of course, some customers may be more interested in the high ticket products or services that a business offers, and other customers may be more interested in the low ticket services and products that a business offers. When it comes to customer journey mapping, Thunderhead and Pega are great tools. So this can be very useful, almost similar to GitMind, because it's the exact same information. It's just mapped in a way that provides a different understanding and sort of gives a bird's eye view of the whole process. And that can often make it easier to consolidate aspects of a process and just reduce friction at each stage. Lifecycle marketing, of course, that's very important because if one can use existing content or marketing assets to retarget or to remarket, then of course that saves a lot on creating these assets, and it also yields the results that the company would like to see. So next, I'm just going to touch a bit on a tool called Mailbutler. So I won't be doing so much of a walkthrough as such, but I will be presenting I will be showcasing exactly what can be done with this and what they offer. So I've been using a free quite a while. I'll just begin sharing my screen. So they have quite a few features. For example, you can use email tracking, which is very useful if you want to know if a client has actually opened an email. You can use it for A/B testing. So for example, you can compare the time between an email being opened and receiving a response for one email compared to like another sort of email. If you're doing A/B testing, it can be very useful. You can send emails like at a later time. So say you're, working late and it's midnight or sometime, that you don't necessarily want to be emailing a potential client. You can always just schedule that email instead. Now, there are also tasks that you can quickly generate using AI based on previous interactions and correspondences in a thread. Which can be very useful because it does save a lot of time if you can just immediately be presented with the best way to begin an email. I think that's a key thing. So it integrates quite nicely into a few different applications. So firstly, it can integrate directly into Apple Mail, which is how I've used it primarily. Integrate into Outlook Web and also the Outlook application, as well as Gmail right there on the browser. So this is definitely something I would recommend exploring, as it can be very useful if there are a lot of emails that one receives and you're just trying to make sure you respond to them efficiently and with the same sort of level of quality. So yeah, Mailbutler is definitely something I would recommend. Okay, and lastly, I believe we are in a position to start wrapping up.
Yeah,
Thank you all for joining.
thank you, Louis and Jeremiah there. I think there's some really useful tips and some really useful tools for anyone who's watching this that maybe is still new to experiment with some AI things. I mean, we've kind of bombarded you with loads of hopefully inspiration and ideas of what you could start doing straight away. So thank you very much for both your time in terms of doing that. If you would like to get a copy of all the resources and all the tools, the links to the tools that we've shared, the prompts, etc., you can scan the QR code that's on the screen or click the link that I've shared just there in the chat. And then, of course, Louis will be in touch to get those across to you. So we'll include all the links, of course, the webinar recording, as well as that very useful Create framework, which you can start playing around with straight away if you've got even a free account. With ChatGPT, or you're using something like Claude that Jeremiah mentioned earlier, it works exactly the same. Really good way to kind of start structuring your prompts. If you're interested in finding out more, we do have a suite of programs here at Edifai, including a half-day AI in Sales mini lab. This session basically goes a lot deeper into some of the techniques and the tools that we discussed today, working on a real business case. It's perfect if you've got a sales team and you really just want to kind of get them all on the same page about using AI more effectively to streamline operations, to automate specific processes, to free up time for more strategic thinking, and more than anything, to close more deals for your business. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about that, we, of course, are very happy to share details on that as well. So once again, just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link that I've just shared in the chat. On that note, again, a huge thank you for those who joined us. A huge thank you again to Louis and Jeremiah for all their words of wisdom and fantastic resources and examples that they shared. And thank you for joining us. I hope you have a lovely day and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye for now. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.